The US president pledges $500 billion investment in artificial intelligence infrastructure as the AI race heats up. Meanwhile, Trump vows to impose 10% tariffs on Chinese-made imports starting next month. And we'll take a look at the economic implications of meme coins as crypto executives warn that they may harm the industry. Hello, I'm Mariam Saidi with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. US President Donald Trump has announced the launch of a $500 billion initiative that aims to advance AI development. The Stargate Project signals a major leap in the global AI race, and it's backed by Oracle, OpenAI and Softbank. Now, an initial $100 billion investment with up to $500 billion in 4 years highlights an unprecedented confidence in US-based AI development. The venture aims to build cutting-edge data centers and ensure global AI leadership. Now, Texas is set to host the project's flagship AI infrastructure already under construction. State-of-the-art facilities across the US will drive technological re-industrialisation and position the US as a hub for advanced AI development. Now, other partners include ARM, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Oracle and OpenAI, who are expected to join forces under the Stargate Project. Now, this collaboration aims to strengthen US strategic security. It shows how critical artificial intelligence is to being globally competitive. Now, the Stargate Project is a response to China's rapid advancements in AI. The scale of commitment reflects America's ambition to lead in a field shaping the economy. Well, for more now, we're joined by Tim Waterer. He's a business and trade analyst. So, Tim, then what are the strategic implications of the $500 billion investment in Stargate for America's AI leadership?
Good to be with you. Yeah, big announcement, wasn't it? Certainly an early PR win for Trump by the look of things. But in terms of the strategy point of view, I think it's really a sign that America's wanting to cement their position as arguably the world leader in AI at the moment. Essentially what they've announced today is like an all-star team, isn't it? As you say, we've also got companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft as the technology partners as well. So certainly good news for the American economy in terms of jobs and large numbers of investment going forward. And I think that's the other side of this as well. There's a lot of interest in AI still, and that's not showing signs of slowing down. So there's going to be competition between the likes of the US and China, currently vying for that #1 spot in terms of the AI leader to attract that global investment into the industry. And I think this is certainly an impressive, I guess, first shot from the US on that front to try and bring these big names together to, as I said, really to cement the US's position there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But certainly from an economic standpoint, good news for the US. And yeah, I guess there will be a lot of investors now lining up. Potentially, if they're deciding between US and China, they'll be certainly attracted to a lot of what we heard today from the president.
They will indeed be lining up. Now, what role do you see for AI in strengthening US national security then and global influence generally?
Yeah, so that we know that AI will be having a big part to play in terms of defense moving forward. Big US defense contractors such as Raytheon's, Lockheed Martin, they're already investing heavily in AI. So it'll be interesting to see how much they are able to leverage off this new initiative announced today. I think the other factor here is, of course, how Taiwan fits into this in terms of, global strategy. Taiwan being the world's biggest producer of semiconductor chips, accounting for 60% of those. So Taiwan, that's a sensitive issue now between China and the US. And I think that also plays a part in terms of how we progress forward in terms of what is effectively an AI race between the world's two biggest economies.
Indeed. Now, Tim, hold your fire. We'll come back to you a little bit later on in the programme. Now, President Trump has vowed to impose a 10% tariff on Chinese-made imports starting February 1st. China, the US's top trading partner, may retaliate, potentially sparking another trade war. Now, following the Biden-era tariffs, China restricted key mineral exports vital for semiconductors and tech. Trump's planned tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods could further put strain on US consumers. So let's go back to Tim then. So Tim, what is the potential global economic repercussions if this trade war does escalate then between the US and China?
So the fear is that we will have this retaliatory effect where one country imposes it and the other country responds in kind, or to a greater degree. Now, we did hear Trump's nominee for a Treasury Secretary. He's saying that tariffs aren't necessarily a source of inflation. I guess that's still up for debate. But in terms of that 10% level, I think it was an interesting reaction of markets today. We saw a lot of markets across Asia still rising, with the exception of Hong Kong and China. So I think overall, investors still trying to, read the tea leaves a little bit on this subject, because we did hear talk of tariffs going as high as 60% on China during the campaign. And now we've had this 10% figure bandied around in the last 24 hours. So it will be interesting to see where the final figure lands. I suspect there will be a lot of negotiations happening in the background at the moment. So yeah, a lot to play out on the tariff story, but I think this is likely to remain, a potential lightning rod for financial markets going forward until the dust settles and we have the final figures, and we'll see how palatable the final tariff levels may be for investors. So yeah, so a lot to play out there still, but a lot of anxiety still that if there is a tariff war that does ensue, then that could have an inhibiting effect on global growth.
Indeed, and we'll have to wait and see in that. Tim Waterer, business and trade analyst, we'll leave it there for now, but thank you for joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
Now, on Tuesday, President Trump once again vowed to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, which aims to cut greenhouse gas emissions. The decision comes as the US Federal Reserve also pulled out of the network for greening the financial system, a group focused on managing environmental risks and finance. Now, other nations like Argentina are said to be considering Washington's lead, further, of course, weakening international climate efforts. Now, President Trump has, of course, made it clear that fossil fuels are his priority. He's promised a new era of oil and gas exploration, saying that we will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves, and export American energy worldwide. Now, his disdain, of course, for this Paris Agreement is well known, calling it a rip-off. Now, since 2016, US oil production has surged by 70%, and the country is now the world's top producer and exporter of both oil and liquefied natural gas. Trump is now focused on, of course, achieving energy independence by drilling more oil and gas as well. Now, the new administration also aims to dismantle key climate policies like the Green New Deal, which was Biden's, of course, landmark effort to fund clean energy and reserve initiatives, promising electric vehicle ownership, which Trump dismisses as the EV mandate. Now, instead, he plans to strengthen the American car industry and end the push for renewable energy in favour of more fossil fuel-driven growth. Well, joining us from Brussels is Wendy Trio. She's a climate policy specialist. So, Wendy, Trump has ordered agencies to halt spending from Biden's climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act payments. So how could this now affect US businesses and the economy?
Yes, well, obviously, Trump's decisions are not good news for climate action, neither in the US nor in the world. But it's very clear that there are a number of economic processes which have been going on for quite a number of years now, both in the world but also in the US, on which Trump will have some impact, but not necessarily an extremely huge impact, and we'll have to see what happens. But it's clear that quite a number of businesses, quite a number of US states have actually gone down the road to transition away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy, towards electric vehicle production and other issues. And that will not immediately stop. I mean, there will be some impact from federal policies, but obviously state policies will remain very important. And a number of those states are Republican states, and they might actually push back against Trump's agenda from within the party and within the Congress.
Now, Wendell, central banks' green push has hit a hurdle also as the Fed drops out. Is the momentum now behind green finance faltering?
Well, definitely there are some setbacks, but I think that, again, there are a number of processes happening that will continue to happen. For instance, within the EU, we still have the green taxonomy that will continue to play and have its impact. But it's very clear that with Trump in the White House, we are in a new era, and we'll have to see what exactly the impact is of its policies, including on actual behavior of banks. I think that a number of banks clearly have been making statements to please the president, but we'll have to see how much that will change the policies and the practices that they have been implementing for the last couple of years.
Okay, Wendell Trio, Climate Policy Specialist, thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
Okay, now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. So Japan's retailers are raising wages again and giving workers more money to spend. This comes as stores struggle to hire staff due to fewer workers and rising costs. Retailers employ 10% of Japan's workforce, making the wage hikes important. Analysts see this as a sign of real change after years of low pay. Panama raised concerns at the UN over Donald Trump's claims on the Panama Canal, calling it a violation of international rules. This follows Trump's assertion that China is controlling the waterway. The Panamanian government urged the UN to review the matter, saying the canal is and will remain Panama's. Netflix added nearly 19 million new subscribers in the last quarter, bringing its total to 302 million worldwide. The company raised prices in the US, Canada, Portugal and Argentina. Funds show more in movies. The platform's shares rose 13%, adding $15 billion to its value. Meanwhile, over the past year, its stocks have gained by 77%. And Adidas reported a five-fold rise in operating profits last year, reaching $1.5 billion. Sales increased by 11% to almost $26 billion, exceeding expectations. The company recovered strongly after ending its Yeezy collaboration with Kanye West in 2023. Adidas says it's now focused on growth and rebuilding its brand. Bitcoin is edging closer to its previous record high of $109,000 as the top US market regulator announced plans to revamp rules for the crypto sector. The new leadership at the Securities and Exchange Commission has set up a task force to create a regulatory framework for digital assets. It's the first major step by Trump's administration to reshape crypto policy. The world's largest cryptocurrency is currently trading above the $105,000 mark after briefly soaring to a record high of $109,000 when Donald Trump was sworn in. Now, ahead of the inauguration ceremony, President Trump introduced the Trump token, followed by his wife's Melania token on Sunday. The Trump meme coin's market value initially soared to $15 billion, but later dipped below $8 billion as Melania's token gained traction. However, the launch of meme coins by Donald Trump and his wife Melania has sparked criticism amongst industry officials. They argue that meme coins make the crypto industry look too risky and uncertain for mainstream investors, as their success heavily depends on fleeting social media trends. Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Arthur Goldstruck in Johannesburg. He's an award-winning writer, analyst, and the CEO of Worldwide Works. So Bitcoin initially surged when Trump took office, but then dropped after crypto was left out of his day one agenda. Do you expect continued volatility until clear policies are announced?
Yes, there's no question about it. We'll see Bitcoin rise and fall with every new rumor and every new confirmation. And the irony is that even if we see a confirmation of regulatory clarity, that might itself result in a dip, because people often buy on speculation and then sell on certainty. That's an old cliche in the stock market, and it's not going to be different in the world of speculating on Bitcoin. But essentially, we saw three eras in 1 week. The one era of massive optimism ahead of the inauguration speech, then massive disappointment that there was no mention in the inauguration speech. I wouldn't call it a crash, but certainly a slump at one stage, almost going under $100,000 again. And then as realism set in, we saw it climb above $105. And now it's marking time above $105,000 as people wait for that regulatory clarity. But what it emphasizes is the extent to which a combination of policy as well as speculation fuel volatility in something like Bitcoin. So every element of the announcements that are being made or leaked or rumored will result in exaggerated market responses.
Now, Arthur, with the SEC forming a task force to oversee digital assets, what key aspects for you should the crypto industry be watching for in these upcoming regulations?
The big question is how they classify a cryptocurrency. Will they be securities? Will they be commodities? Will they be something else? Because each of those will require a different kind of regulations. If they are defined as securities, there will be heavy oversight by law from the SEC. If they're defined as commodities, then there are other elements. Then export rules kick in. If they are required to comply with reporting standards for exchanges, then it requires another range of requirements like know your customer standards or anti-money laundering regulations. So any decision made by the SEC will have large-scale ramifications for investors and speculators in crypto.
Indeed. Now, our final question. Trump's involvement in the crypto space has, of course, raised concerns about conflicts of interest. How might this now impact regulatory decisions going forward?
It holds a tremendous danger of bias in policy formation, and regulators are going to have to show their mettle, their willingness to place increased scrutiny on cryptocurrencies, in particular the new coins that are being released. Something that has to be emphasized, though, is the value of these coins is not actual money in the bank. It's based on the sale value of the initial coins and not necessarily what Trump is truly worth. It's a paper value. And that in itself also implies that there may be efforts from Trump himself at regulatory overreach in terms of favoritism towards his own coins to boost their value.
OK, Arthur Goldstruck, good to have your thoughts on the programme. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's day 3 at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where global leaders have convened under the theme of collaboration for the intelligent age. Now, this year's agenda spans critical topics from enhancing living standards to advancing greener economies. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen emphasised the importance of removing the remaining barriers to achieving a unified EU energy market. Trade tensions are also on the agenda as nations grapple with potential tariffs from President Trump's second term in office. Well, our correspondent Enda Brady is in the city of Davos and sent this report.
Well, the organisers of this year's forum say that there are 3 key topics they want everyone to discuss this week: misinformation, climate change and wars. But in all honesty, there's just one story in town, and it's Donald J. Trump. His return as President of the United States. What will he do? Will there be tariffs? Will he follow through on all of that rhetoric? And it's very, very interesting the last couple of hours interviewing banking bosses from South Africa, energy ministers from Nigeria. They all point out that tariffs are good for nobody, because if Trump imposes tariffs on other people's goods, they might reciprocate on a global scale, and that would then drive prices up, and we would see global inflation, and that would be no good for anybody. So it's fascinating that the whole conference here, the whole summit this week, the one name that everyone is talking about, he's not actually here. Trump has attended twice previously in his first term as president. So what will happen now is he will address the assembly in the meeting here on Thursday evening about 5 p.m. virtually. He will speak online, and absolutely everybody will attend that session to try and see what Donald Trump is going to do. Will there be any big decisions this week, or will he just slowly bed in? But the business world is here. There are tech billionaires here, hundreds of CEOs and around 60 different world leaders. And the one person they all want to hear from is Donald J. Trump. So that'll be on Thursday. And it's also interesting that in the past couple of hours we've heard from Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. She's effectively quashed any talk of a trade war with China, speaking positively about the relationship and encouraging that to grow and develop, and pointing out that they both need each other, China and the European Union. There have been fears of a trade spat all over electric vehicles and China wanting to pump them into the European market. But Europe, of course, very concerned about what that would do for Germany's car manufacturing industry in particular. And Xi seems to be offering the hand of friendship pretty much now to China. So whether they take it up or not, we will see. The Chinese Vice Premier is also here and speaking today. So a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, but really all eyes on Thursday and Donald Trump speaking virtually to Davos.
Well, supporters of far-right parties in Latin America are excited about Trump's second term. As Michael Fox reports from Chile, they hope that his presidency will have a knock-on effect across their region.
Far from the United States, many people look forward to Donald Trump's second term in the Oval Office.
The right wing is growing. We see it in elections across the world, particularly now with Trump returning.
It's a sentiment held around the region for a far-right movement that sees Trump's victory as proof that they are destined for big wins up and down the hemisphere.
I am convinced that with Trump's victory, we can take all of Latin America.
In recent years, the far right has taken power in Brazil, El Salvador, and Argentina.
Here in Chile, lawyer and far-right politician José Antonio Cast narrowly lost the last presidential election in 2021. He's looking for a rematch later this year.
His supporters hope Trump's prominence will help give him an extra boost. While far-right parties have their own national and often nationalist identities, experts say they are organizing internationally.
They have a type of conservative international, and they are becoming more visible.
Trump is, of course, their most iconic figure.
Trump's election in the United States is really important for Brazil because it's oxygen for our far-right movement.
At an event last year in Brazil, far-right supporters brandished Trump apparel.
Trump represents the defense of our freedom, for human lives, families, the economy, progress, and above all, freedom.
They hope Trump can make good on his promise to defend family values and make America great again, not just for the United States, but across the region. Michael Fox, TRT World, Arica, Chile.
Now, until recently, walking through Baghdad's Coppersmith market, you'd be met with the noise of hammer beating against metal. But at the Souk al-Salafir, it's gone quiet. Textile shops have largely replaced the age-old copper trade, as Lara Kil-Alshalan has a story.
In the heart of Baghdad lies Souk al-Salafir, the historic Coppersmith market. For centuries, it has been filled with the sound of hammering sheets of metal and the shine of handcrafted trays and coffee pots. But that scene has now almost faded away. A decade ago, there were 67 coppersmith shops. Now, only 8 remain.
There are no tourists anymore, and Iraqis have lost interest in this craft. This profession needs a craftsman with cultural awareness, but fewer people are willing to learn it.
Iraqis who earn on average $400 a month are turning to cheaper Chinese and Indian products that have flooded the market. Expensive rents and rising electricity bills, along with power shortages, have added to the burden. Many coppersmiths have been forced to sell their shops, with fabric stores now taking over.
I feel sad for the coppersmith profession. It started here in Iraq and spread to other countries. Now we're importing from them. There's no support for this craft, and taxes on materials make it hard to survive. Most of the market has turned into textile shops and stores selling gas cookers.
Added to the decline is that many coppersmiths have become old and retired, and their children have chosen not to carry on the family business. So, Baghdad's coppersmith market looks very different and is falling largely silent. Lara Kulcharsan, TRT World.
A small step in size, but hopefully a big one in terms of impact in future medical advancement. Scientists have developed miniature virtual reality headsets for mice in their research into the brain. While with the invention, experts are hoping to find a cure for several diseases like Alzheimer's. Pinar Nish Shasta reports.
An unprecedented view into mice brains now lies in front of scientists with the help of miniature VR headsets. Researchers at Cornell University in New York built small goggles to observe the brain activity of mice. They hope it could help reveal how the brain controls memory function, giving them new insights into disorders such as Alzheimer's and potential treatments.
Trying to understand what a certain treatment, which improves blood flow in the brain, how it is working to potentially improve spatial learning and memory. So in order to study what this treatment is doing, we need to use a very powerful microscope and head fix Alzheimer's disease mouse underneath the microscope, and then put it in a situation where it can navigate an environment so that we can assess its spatial learning and memory.
The mouse stands on a treadmill, its head fixed in place, while it peers into a pair of eyepieces. This setup allows researchers to image the mouse's neural activity patterns.
When it's head fixed, obviously the animal cannot actually move around, but this is where the trick of VR comes in, where even though an animal is head fixed, it can still navigate a virtual environment. So having a VR system is very enabling for translational neuroscience.
Isaacson says the mice appear to enjoy taking part in trials that earn them rewards of sugar water or peanut butter. The development of the goggles will continue, and the research team plans to create other versions with better technology suitable for different kinds of rodents. With the help of small mice wearing goggles, researchers get one step closer to the treatments for diseases that affect millions of people worldwide every year. Punarni Shasta, TRT World.
Okay, and that's all of your business news for now. Thanks for watching. The Newsmakers is coming up next.